Welcome back to the 2024 Big Sky Conference Kickoff Media Day.
Welcome back into Spokane, Washington. Long day, right? I know things are kind of blank. Long day for everybody here. Megan Robinson, Kyle Hansen, your host here for the Big Sky Kickoff, joined by Aaron Best, our final head coach interview of the day. Coach, great to have you here. And just what's it like? You know, you guys are right down the road, and you're just, we were just talking off camera, 6 days away from opening camp and getting the season started.
Yeah, it's exciting, and we get to do this every year as coaches. Kids only get to do it 4, 5, 6, and in one case 7 years. We have a 7th-year guy, Darian Sampson, for us. So it's a short amount of time for them. We want to make it special for them, but it's coming up for everybody, and August 29th comes before we know it. So we'll get them up and running. This is when it becomes real. When you're doing these interviews and doing media days, that's when you know your summer's coming to a bitter halt.
Feels like we just had 4th of July, too, Coach. You know, it's like summer starts and then it's over, just like that. But we are so excited for football season. This year, off season, your focus was recruiting wide receiver room and offensive line. How would you assess those position groups heading into camp later this week?
Well, I think first off, you kind of look a couple years down the road where you're going to lose some guys. We're not trying to replace them the next year. We're trying to replace them with 2 years to go, so they can redshirt a year and hopefully be influential during the season in their second fall. So we put a precedence on offensive line, wide receiver, and then defensive line. We're kind of the 3 areas of importance in the next 2 years. There's going to be a fair amount of turnover, so we want to get ahead of that, not only with high school guys but non-high school guys as well. So it's not exact, as we all know in recruiting. It's not exact, but and we won't know really what those guys bring to the table until we get to game days. But up to this point, they've shown that they can function at a high level. Now it's a matter of seeing them do it in the game. So we will see how that goes. But the brighter the lights, the different the stories. So hopefully those stories are good.
Coach, let's go ahead and take a look at your schedule here. It's a very interesting one for you guys, especially. You open up with these 3 FCS games in the non-conference, and a really good one with Southeastern Louisiana, traditionally good FCS program. The FBS game at Nevada, and then you open conference against the Grizzlies. So what do you think of your schedule when you take a look at it, and you guys are going to see some of the best of the best and kind of looking to kind of get over that hump again?
Yeah, it's scheduling is so important now, especially the Big Sky Conference being as good as it is. So the non-conference, you set it up differently, in my opinion, than you did 10 or 15 years ago. We front-loaded a lot of games 15 years ago when I was an assistant to kind of see the Northern Iowas, the South Dakotas, because those guys are going to be potentially what you're going to see at the end of the year or after the year is complete. So when you're facing perennial playoff teams in our conference week in, week out during the conference segment of things, the non-conference becomes how do you balance that all out? If you're playing 11 playoff teams back to back, health is a big factor, mindset is a big factor. So having 2 home games to start out against Monmouth and Drake are big. We played Southeast Louisiana at home last year, so we return to them and back end of a home and home, and then we go down to Reno to play Nevada. 12-game season, 12 Division I opponents, which is big, and then we start out like you mentioned our home slate conference-wise at home against Montana. So got our work cut out for us, but a little bit of a newness to 3 of the 4 teams in the non-conference we don't know much about, which is kind of an energy booster when you're going into those games because they're unfamiliar foes. So excited about the opportunity with those 4 non-conference games, and then obviously the conference being as tricky and good as it is the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, Coach, you're talking about the conference and the toughness of the Big Sky. You face 4 2023 playoff teams in your first 5 conference games. How can that stretch help you set the tone for the Big Sky Conference this season?
Well, I don't think it's much different than the last couple of years. We just see them earlier on, no matter where they are in your schedule. It's unbalanced just because of number of teams in this league. But the Big Sky Conference put the totality, the holistic schedule out a couple of years ago, so you knew who you're going to play. But much like non-conference, you don't know 4 years from now what a team's going to be. You have ideas, but just so happens we end up being kind of front-loaded in the conference slate. But I don't know when the best time to face those teams are. You got to play who's on the schedule and play as well as you can with who you have at the time you play them. So it's going to be tough, and it's only gotten tougher since I stepped in the chair in 2017. As far as the league itself, with the coaches, the players, and the coaching, it's a week in and week out endeavor for sure. Much different than it was throughout the first part of the decade and a half that I was in the conference.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, when you take a look at last year a little bit, a lot of close games for you guys as you guys were kind of getting back on track a little bit. You bring back some key contributors. I look at quarterback, receiver, things like that. So in your mind, what does Eastern need to do to kind of get over that hump and kind of get back into that playoff form and, close out some of those close games on the win?
Yeah, you mentioned last year, I think we're in 6 one-score games. We were 2-4 in those one-score games. But then you go back to 2022, and I think we were in one-score game. So we took great strides, albeit it wasn't necessarily in a statistical category, but we got ourselves in those games last year, and we're used to a ton of wins, a ton of success. This university, this football program has had a ton of tradition over the years, but tradition from 10 years ago doesn't parlay it into the next 10 months. And so just to instill that into our kids, you don't win because we've won before. Some guys, there's been a guy that played for a national championship, Darian Sampson, as a true freshman, played in the national championship game in 2018. There's some guys that will play in the playoffs in 2021, spring and fall, and there's some guys that haven't been to the playoffs at all on our roster. So to mesh all those guys together at the same spot, to go the same direction at the same speed, that's our job and our duty as coaches. But we do bring back enough parts to be able to get this thing done, but it's a week in and a week out. It's not a 12-game season. It's a one-game season, 12 in totality.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, excited to see how it goes for you. Thanks so much for your time and good luck this season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And coming up on the other side, we have Eastern Washington's players here on the Big Sky Kickoff.